Welcome back after the break, and we're busy looking at question 3.3.4. Now, a decision was taken to upgrade the existing road in the village at B. Explain how and why this decision will change the classification of the village in an urban hierarchy. Now, let's just quickly go and have a look back to our diagram, our figure. Now, they've mentioned that they're going to upgrade the road over there, and there's the road that follows along the clustered rural settlements and close to the linear settlements over there. Now, how will that impact the village? First of all, it will change from a village to a town. Okay, so the town, pardon me, it's going to change from a rural settlement, such as a village. The village will eventually turn into a town. So what happens? It moves up in the urban hierarchy. Now down on the bottom three is our rural settlements. It's a hamlet, village, and an isolated farmstead. And as soon as a village moves to a town, because there's more people, it's an urban settlement. Another reason that we can mention over there, it will change from unifunctional to multifunctional. Now, unifunctional is when there's only one activity. For instance, if you look at the linear settlement, there's only farming taking place. But multifunctional is when we add secondary and tertiary activities. For instance, a shop might open, or we might process the fruit that's been produced. So it's not going to be unifunctional anymore. It's going to be multifunctional. Okay, if you look at our third point that we can mention, it might provide more high order services. Okay. More high order services. Now, we've looked at high order and low order when we looked at a theory section. Low order is, for instance, to go and buy a bread and go and buy milk. A high order is to go and see a specialist. You're willing to travel much further to get that higher order function or service. So now, because it's changing from a rural settlement to an urban settlement, the chances is that there might be higher order functions available as well. And what can we name as well? We can also say that the sphere of influence will increase. So that means, if we go back to this diagram over here, if this little village turns into an urban area, it means people from the surrounding areas further away will be attracted to come and buy goods or to get some sort of services. It means it attracts more people from the surrounding area. Okay, that answers that question over there. Let's see what's our next question. Okay, question 3.4 focuses on an informal settlement in India. Now, we discussed informal settlements quite a few times. Now, please do not confuse between the informal sector. The informal sector do not add to our GDP because they do not pay tax. The informal settlement is a settlement that lacks basic needs and services. Okay, and each and every country do have informal settlements. Now let's just quickly have a look at this figure 3.4. It's about India. As you can see, look at the conditions. First of all, this is a couple of clues. Illegal electricity, I don't know what you mean. As you can see, there's the electricity poles that you have over there, and people just basically get their own electricity, probably illegally, to get electricity in their houses. Now there's an example, there's no running water in their houses. Look at the woman that needs to go and fetch water. There's another example. Look at the infrastructure over there. I mean, look at the way they build their houses. To keep their houses nice and strong, they had to place tires on top of the roofs. If you look at the road, it looks damaged, full of potholes. So you can immediately see in this cartoon that there lacks services that's being provided by the government. But let's quickly go and have a look at the questions that's being asked regarding this case study or cartoon that we just witnessed. What is an informal settlement? Okay, we can say it's an unplanned settlement that lacks basic needs and services. Now, if you look at the next question over there, there's quite a few over there. Name one basic service that the informal settlement basically lacks. Drinking water. As you can see, the women had to go and fetch water. Sewage. Okay. Sanitation, that's a better term to use. Electricity. Safety. Proper roads. We looked at that cartoon. As you can see, the roads are damaged beyond repair. And formal housing. Okay, now this is just a case study about a formal settlement in India, but unfortunately South Africa also do have many informal settlements, and they go by the names of shacks. Okay, if you look at our next question, 3.4.3, explain why illegal electricity connections are also common in informal settlements in South Africa. Now, the simple reason why we also have massive always outages because people are stealing copper cables and there's illegal electricity connections is because the government do not provide our informal sections, informal settlements with electricity. So we can say the government does not supply the informal settlements with electricity. Another reason, and this is probably the biggest reason, they can't afford it, so they do the electricity connections illegally. Okay, informal settlers can't afford electricity. And lastly, it's quite easy for them to connect it, easy access to connect electricity illegally. Okay. So it's not like someone is stopping them, it's happening because it's so easy just to do a connection and then all of a sudden you have electricity. But that's the biggest, we are dealing with this problem on a daily basis because first of all the people can't afford electricity and the government didn't make provision to provide these settlements with electricity, and it's so easy for them just to do the connection by themselves. Now if you look at question 3.4.4, explain why the safety officer is justified in giving the informal settlement inhabitant a fine. Now, first of all, when we look at it on the cartoon, I just want to go back to the cartoon. Okay, as you can see, the safety officer basically a fine has been written out over there. The simple reason, because first of all, is connecting the electricity illegally, and second of all, basically is breaking the law. And thirdly, because he's not paying for the electricity, the government is not making money of it. So we can write the local government is losing money. So that might be the reasons because of it. And question 3.4.5. In a paragraph of approximately 8 lines, evaluate how the inhabitants and the activities in informal settlements negatively affect the environment. Now, keep in mind we're going to talk about environmental problems that exist because of informal settlements. When you do answer this question, please answer it in paragraph formation. I'm going to write it in bullet formation, but please answer it in paragraph formation. Now, first of all, if you look at these informal settlements, it lacks services. So the biggest problem that's going to exist environmentally is pollution. If you look at the natural environment, let's quickly have a look at it. Now, 3 things that we need to have a look at is the natural environment, the social environment, and the economic environment. If we look at the natural environment, definitely deforestation. That's the first one. So what are people doing over there? Because they want to build their own settlement by using infrastructure, weak infrastructure like wood and panels, etc. They remove plants and it causes deforestation that will lead to soil erosion. A second negative effect on the environment will be pollution. Now in this case, air pollution, because how do they keep themselves warm during cold winter months? They burn firewood. So air pollution, burning. I'm just going to write there, burning of firewood. Another form of pollution that's definitely going to take place is water pollution. Because they wash their clothes in the rivers, washing clothes and sewage is a great concern over there. So, and eventually, because deforestation are taking place and because they're polluting, air pollution taking place, and because they pollute the river systems, what's going to happen with the ecosystems? The ecosystem is going to be destroyed. Okay, if you look at all the plant and animal species, because deforestation has taken place and because of the water pollution, the chances that the ecosystem will be greatly affected. Now, when we look at the environment, we're going to look at the natural environment, but let's quickly look at the social environment, and that's regarding the people living there. First of all, if you look at social environment, we can say whether it definitely, with all the littering taking place, it creates unhygienic conditions. Because of no sewage, what can happen, if you look at the sewage, no sewage may lead to diseases that will affect the people. Now, many people live in informal settlements because they can't afford to live in low-cost housing. And a lot of people tend to involve themselves with crime. So the crime rate will increase, unfortunately. And we've seen it happening before. There's overcrowding taking place because of the amount of people moving from the rural areas away from the rural areas because of lack of services. It leads to overcrowding. too many people in an area. And lastly, social evils will increase. Now, when I talk about social evils that will increase, because people are living in poverty and many of the kids won't go to school, they might lead to prostitution and more crime. If you look at our last environmental effect, and it can affect economical. Okay. Now, if an informal settlement starts to develop, the surrounding areas, there will be a negative impact, because the property close to these informal settlements will lose its property value because of the conditions that we've just mentioned. Naturally and socially will bring the property prices immediately down. So property prices close to, I'm just going to write informal settlements, will decrease. And lastly, it will cost the government a lot of money to restore the natural environment that was damaged while there was deforestation taking place, while there was pollution taking place, when these informal settlements started developing. Now, always remember, when we look at our paragraph questions, always remember, keep your economical, social, and environmental consequences in mind. How does it affect the environment? How does it affect the people living in the environment? And what effect will it have, money-wise, on our country? Okay, stay tuned. After the break, we're going to continue with some more questions.